Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise Highway to the Threemus Zone bracket match between EizanTayama and Zyrak. This is going to be the first match in their best of three here in the Spoon Group. And my name is Rex Raoul. I'm joined by Vitasia, and we've got a heck of a race coming up tonight.
Absolutely. This one promises to be an interesting one. When we look at these objectives, of course, we have standard forge the sword, but then it gets a little bit more interesting from there. Open the Troya treasury, which is our new favorite meme that we have here in the community. But then a couple freebies. Defeat the boss at the waterfall and rescue the hostage at Mount Hobbs. This signals to me that it could be a pretty quick seed if nothing else is, if the Earth Crystal or anything else isn't buried. But I don't know. What do you think about these, Rex?
I think that I've been known to be wrong on my predictions so much that I think it's best to not even think about that, and we'll just see where the items fall and go from there.
You know what? I can understand and respect that. I think we've been at this game long enough to know what's going on. Speaking of being at the game for a long time, I was trying to do a little bit of research. Both EizanTayama and Zyrak, longtime members of this community, both of them predating the first Highway to the Threemus Zone tournament that we ever had here for Free Enterprise, and they haven't raced each other in a formal tournament setting before. I was flabbergasted. I would have expected these two, having been around so long, to at least have some mystery at some point, but nothing.
Yeah, well, I guess they could thank Dusty Griff for picking the two of them to face each other and finally have their paths cross here in an official event, as were picked by Dusty for this Spoon Group and specifically to face each other here in the first round of brackets.
Absolutely. Of course, the other side of that Spoon Group, Dusty Griff versus Invenerable, is going to be a very highly anticipated matchup that's going to be taking place tomorrow. These two aren't, every racer is good at this point in time, but these two also very, very highly rated. Nothing is free, but the winner of this race, of this best of three, will then face off against the winner of Invenerable versus Dusty. That's got to be a little bit intimidating for these guys.
I should think so. But first, they've got each other to deal with here in a best of three. This race here is going to be kind of set up to get yourself in good position. After that, you only have to win one of the next two races in order to advance. So this is going to be a real big table setter for this Spoon Group in general.
Absolutely. So we're counting down here, just about done. We have a Porum start. What do you think? Early White Mage guarantee? Seems all right to me.
I think a lot of runners have been preferring the mages in these table flags. So even though she might not be the most ideal white mage, I think having magic users is always something that people want to see. And speaking of people that people want to see, I think this Tella might be picked up by both runners here. And yeah, they both decide to keep the old man Tella.
Yeah, can't hurt. Tella's probably the most important character. The way these flags have shaken up sets up a lot of your grind in order to get you to Threemus levels late game, as long as we can find that darkness crystal. What concerns me a little bit is if we have two free checks, that if we end up getting an early crystal and say a pass, that Tella might end up being dead weight if we don't actually have to do a grind at any point, but we'll see how it plays out.
That's kind of the risk of taking Tella here, but I think the reward is so good with Tella, it's still worth taking. His utility spells in the early game are still something that are pretty useful, and you're going to have to do that. Looks like we're seeing Zyrak go into Baron, and we see Sid as the character in the Baron Inn, whereas Eizan went up to the Watery Pass and also finds Sid.
I love playing Polybridge as much as the next person, but I didn't need this many engineers to do it. So, what is this?
Eizan decides not to take Sid here. That's interesting. I know Sid has been pretty popular in the table flags as maybe the one physical character that you get, but might want to see who else is available before making that final decision on who to grant into the party.
Absolutely. Eisen did end up finding a power shirt. That's a fantastic pickup there in the waterfall check. I imagine Zyrak will also end up getting that. Zyrak really just kind of following on the heels of what EizanTayama has already done. Finds a Poison Claw as well. That's not a bad pickup if you find a Young as an alternative for picking up that Sid. And Zyrak does end up saying, yeah, I'll take it.
Not really surprised that one of the runners decides to take the early Sid. Porum is great when you level her up, and even a little bit, she learns some magic pretty early. And Tella, of course, once you complete Mount Ordeals, becomes very useful. But getting to that point can be tough with these two characters. They're not really known for being able to handle a lot of bosses at their kind of vanilla base levels.
Well, Sid, on the other hand, can kind of make quick work. He's just about capable of even soloing Mount Ordeals if you get a little bit of gear on him. So the fact that we have things at the waterfall and at Mount Hobbs, picking up that Sid really enables us to go ahead and clear both of those out while we're in the area, presuming something isn't too nasty waiting for us.
That power shirt is something that's really going to help that Sid in the early game as well. And even if you decide to roll with him throughout the rest of the seed, that's going to be something that's probably going to be staying equipped to him for a long time. If you're able to find something like a rune axe or a good, decent bow, Sid can be very effective as a physical attacker throughout the course of the game, especially with that power shirt.
Absolutely. We did end up seeing, Eisen is clearing things out here. I've seen a rune ring. I haven't seen a whole lot of other gear available for us up here in the Troya basement. Or not Troya, Damsian. Getting my places mixed up. Wow.
Yeah, well, they all have a very similar art scheme. Oh, and we've got a Palom up there in Damsian, so both twins are available. Palom, I think, is more likely to be joined than not, but we'll see. Eisen wants to make sure he knows what all of his options are before making a decision, and I can definitely respect that. Says no to the Palom for now. We'll see if he decides to end up taking him. Might want to save him until there's a possible slingshot later as well. We'll see if Zyrak makes the same choice or also takes him on like he did Sid. And it looks like he says yes. So we're seeing some divergence in what characters people are committing to at what times here, and I think that's really interesting.
Well, I think, okay, so EizanTayama does find a Young here, so, and a Rydia. So if you avoided that Sid, just based on equipment possibilities right now, the Young doesn't need a whole lot of equipment, and the power shirt will still help him out quite a bit.
Eisen's thinking this one over. Ends up looks like decides to take the punchy man and is going to make use of that poison claw and the power shirt. And so going a different route in characters than we saw on Zyrak's side, and so we'll see if that really makes a difference in how they decide to route this game.
It'll be interesting. So Zyrak kind of has a level advantage with that Sid right now, although not a ton of great equipment. Not that he needs it. At level 20 plus a power shirt, his hammer can do quite a bit of damage on its own, enough to get him through the first phase of this game and really complete two objectives. In the meantime, it looks like he's about done with Antlion Cave. He's going to show us our first boss. While EizanTayama is climbing Mount Hobbs, do your objectives.
It might be one of these things where if we end up finding an early darkness crystal, that's something that could really favor Eisen, because Yang is one of those characters who really wants to be leveled up rather than equipped up. And so it's going to really benefit him if he's able to get into that grind and get into that giant and do the D machine grind early, whereas the levels aren't as necessary for Sid. I mean, he still gets a good HP pool with levels, but his damage calculation doesn't scale as well with levels as Yang's does.
Meanwhile, Zyrak gets through Dark Imps at Antlion. Not a horrible fight, although that's one of those fights you probably want to see a little bit later when you have easy methods of disposing of them. Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness, here we go. There is that early darkness crystal I thought that might favor EizanTayama. And as long as he decides not to fade Antlion Cave, he's going to get that early darkness crystal. And that might put him in a little bit of a good state character wise, because now the ability to grind on the moon is out there. All you have to do is complete Mount Ordeals to get Tella the weak spell, and the D Machine grind is available. EizanTayama has also completed that rescue the hostage objective. That was Kane that, like all the other characters, or the vast majority of the characters so far, Eisen has said no to. But another free boss up there too with the King Queen Evelyn. You talk about the imps you want to see at a later fight. I think King Queen Evelyn's one even more so.
Absolutely, and just some darkness arrows on the other side. So already setting up to be quite a fast race. I did want to clarify something that chat was asked in terms of how characters end up working. Characters are set to permajoin, so as soon as you have a character, you cannot dismiss them from the party. So the only character that we were forced to have right out of the gate was Porum, because that was our starting character. As we're going around checking all the character slots and we're saying, no, I don't want them, those characters are taking a quick break over to the Mysidia Tower of Wishes. Now, if we so desire, we dismiss a bunch of characters and then say, you know what, I really want that Rydia in my party for whatever reason. You just want to stack your spellcasters. You can go back, and as long as you dismiss the Rydia, there will be a Rydia available there for you to pick up. But again, as soon as they join your party, they are stuck there. So it behooves a lot of runners to kind of check on all the different party combinations that are out there, see what you have available to you before you build your party. Although, because you have to go to the Tower of Wishes and gather them there, it can be a bit inefficient for characters that you know you want in your party, like Palom, like Tella.
Exactly. So that's kind of the gamble that these two runners have been making between themselves. Eisen's been a little bit more cautious as to which characters join, whereas Zyrax says, bring them on, and is making the decisions on the fly and saying, I'm happy with this character joining at this point. I know I want this one in my party. I'm okay with having them through the end, and let's just roll with it right now instead of having to fly back whenever you want another character to join. And both of our characters, our runners, have now completed objective number 4, and they have both obtained their darkness crystal. Zyrak is now in Fabul, picking up some star veils for sale. You get a couple of them with the starters kit that we've got in this flag set, but always having more of them on hand is very useful. And it looks like we're going to get a peek at this Fabul defense right now on Zyrak's screen. We're going to get another boss check and another potential key item if this boss is defeated here. EizanTayama not far behind, and looks like we have Octomam.
Not a horrible spot for this. You know, it does have a little bit higher HP for this portion of the game. That being said, it still has the weaknesses that you expect. More importantly, you know, Octomam can really hurt at later stages of the game, especially if you get it into a high damage spot or a fast spot somewhere on the moon. So I'm perfectly happy seeing an Octomam here.
Now this is where Zyrak's party really kind of has a little bit of an advantage here. These early game bosses are going to be easily mowed down by Zyrak, having access to that twin, the Lit Tube from Palom, the extra damage from a higher level Sid. So Eisen's going to probably take a little bit longer to get through the fight. It's going to be the later fight when he's got the higher power Yang that's going to be able to outdamage Sid that Eisen's going to get the advantage on. And the question is how much of the game is going to be after that grind takes place now. And that's going to depend on where we find the Earth Crystal and or the Adamant and Legend Sword.
Well, this kind of sets up an age-old question. Do you continue to do these overworld checks that you know you're going to need to do and gain some levels out of that? Or do you go ahead and try to, you know, do ordeals, get Tella set up, and then do your grind so that you can mow your way through everything else after the fact?
Well, part of it is you need to get enough levels that you feel that you're confident enough to defeat the bosses on Mount Ordeals. And I think that's kind of what like this Fabul check is really all about. Getting to that next point, because you can go to the giant right now, but without weak on Tella, you don't have access to really efficiently do that D machine grind. So I think that's really the key right now.
While this French vanilla fighter, Karate, is in the wrong chair, but that's okay.
Yeah, the real challenge is going to be figuring out who's going to be this boss in the second spot. It doesn't give experience, but it's a much higher level spot, and we've got the elements here. Looks like going to be using some twin magic and the hammer from Sid to try to take it down. Luckily, this spot is pretty slow, so getting through it shouldn't be too tough. The scary part is going to be the glare from Rubicant. If he can get past that, and we do, then I think Zyrek's in the clear.
Yeah, again, he's set up well, and really, a lot of this is coming down to we're having good elemental weakness matches that are going on, but at the same time, his Sid is really able to carry him through a lot of these much, much quicker. And yeah, that gets done much quicker. I am seeing the hook already was what our reward was from the Fabul Gauntlet, so we have our access to Underground if we want to do that. I think we get our grind out of the way first, though.
I imagine that's true, and also to check to see if the Magma Key is up there on Mount Ordeals. The other thing is you're not required to go to... Once you do that grind, you're not beholden to do the underground check next. You could decide to do moon checks after that if you want. So that's another thing that's out there. I'm not saying that that's what the runners are going to do. I'm just saying that everything's going to be open to them, especially if it's a hook seed. Making that decision is going to be a big thing.
That does make a good point. I think here's the problem, though. If you go up to the moon, I think you have to commit yourself. You're hoping that you find the Earth Crystal, because if you end up finding the sword or the adamant armor, then you're just kind of setting yourself to have to go to the underground anyway. And unless you end up finding the Magma Key as well, then that's effectively 3 key item checks versus 1 that you're hoping on. I don't know. There's some other math that's going on, but you have to understand that we have to get underground to forge the sword. So dodging the hook for too long isn't necessarily going to play out unless we get really lucky with Magma Key placement and everything else that's going on.
Yeah, that's the counter argument is you might find that Magma Key up there. At any rate, Zyrek has decided to do another objective check here and finds Rubicant in the waterfall. And again, these elemental weaknesses just paying off for Zyrek, and that ice too finishes off the Fiend of Fire, whereas EizanTayama is taking a jaunt up Mount Ordeals and finds yet another Tella, and there's kind of diminishing returns on a second old man.
And when you say diminishing returns, you mean absolutely worthless after the first.
That's another way that you can put it, sure.
Used to your big fancy college words, diminishing return. No, he's worthless. After the first one, he's done.
We've been seeing some other equipment. Zyra picking up a bandana here, and the Zeus Gauntlet as the reward for completing the Baron Inn. And that Sid is really decked out in armor. That's like what you want to get if you want to boost the strength of your Sid. Now if you could just find a rune axe for him or something like that.
Nice. It would be fantastic. Meanwhile, Zyrak is going to go ahead and do the Darkness Crystal. Hasn't done Ordeals yet. I sure hope he doesn't forget to do Ordeals.
Well, we'll see. You might be wanting to do a check on the character up in the Lunar Palace as well before committing to Mount Ordeals and then the grind afterward. Looks like the first boss on Mount Ordeals that EizanTayama is fighting is Odin, able to dispatch him without too much of a problem. That first boss has very low physical attack, and that's basically what you're up against with Odin, so not too much of a threat there. We'll see who's in that second boss spot. That's usually the X factor of Mount Ordeals.
Yeah, the other two spots are generally pretty easy. It is this back attack spot that can play havoc. Oh, and we have ourselves Darkin.
Yeah, this Dark Elf fight, it could be tough. I think, depending on how things go, the magic damage isn't the scary part. The Whisper and the Weak are the scary things that Dark Elf does. If you can get him transformed into the Dark Dragon form, he's generally a lot easier to deal with in that form rather than the Elf form.
One thing that we'll see both EizanTayama and Zyrek doing as we're running around here is doing a little bit of shopping. Now, I do recall, I don't remember which run it was. I think it was Eizan who already did find either ones that were available in the Kaipo item shop. That really weirdly dangerous Kaipo item shop with the old lady who will block you if you're too slow.
But it's also a dangerous one because it's a bit out of the way, because you have to you can't land the airship right next to Kaipo. You have to make a walk in order to get there.
Yeah, but other than that, we've seen Thor Rages available, which are fine. We've seen Star Veils that are available, which is fine. I've not seen any life potions available, which is kind of key if we're going to be doing the D-Machine grind before too long. So I expect our runners to take their time to do a little bit of shopping, check around all those item shops, hoping for their life potions. Is it possible for there to be no life potions available in the upper world?
I think they're still guaranteed, but I'm not 100% sure anymore. Things change. I mean, they haven't changed in a while, but I do think they're always going to be available. But the interesting thing is those ether ones are really important for that D-Machine grind because of Tella's MP, since he is stuck at that 90 MP, or I know that one of the runners found a Soma drop to boost him up to 100 MP, and with Weak costing 25 a pop, that's a lot.
Absolutely. So Eizan, oh, hello, Luca Key, something we hope we never have to use.
Sure. But the third fight is Valveless. Interesting.
Hey, I'm perfectly fine with Val being here.
I'm not one of these runners who has Val's effectiveness in tornado form memorized in every spot, but it looks like the Berserk Yang is doing plenty of damage here, so looks like Eizan should have no problem clearing this boss and completing Mount Ordeals, and then be ready to head through, get the characters that he wants, and then do the grind whenever he feels ready to do it.
Two different bosses that cast Weak available up on Mount Ordeals by themselves. That's nice to get out of the way relatively early in the game, I would say. Because Weak is one of those spells that even on lower level places, it's just annoying to have to deal with.
Weak might be the spell of the seed if we get that D-Machine grind going too.
It's looking set up that way. Meanwhile, Zyrek also gets his Dark Elf down as EizanTayama is leaving the mountain. It's really going to come down. I think, we're going to start our shop check. Eizan doesn't quite have his full party set up. He's only rolling with 3 at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what he decides to do from this point forward.
I know one of the characters in Mysidia right now was Rydia, and I know that a lot of runners really like to have her as a slingshot target. We'll see if that's what the runners decide to do with that last character spot, both for Zyrek. Eizan's got 2 spots still left to fill, and so it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do with that last character spot. There are those life potions that you were talking about, Patasia, right there in Toria, and Eisen has that and the ethers. Could be ready to go to the giant whenever he wants now.
Yeah, not anything really holding back. You have yourself a nice reflect target with Yang, who can deal enough physical damage to get through any bosses that we might need to rely on him for. Tella for the grind, we have a Porum. At this point, go pick up Rydia and Palom and let's get some slingshots rolling.
That would be my guess, if as to what characters Eisen would add right now. We might see if he wants to make a check on the moon to see if that last character is either a second Rydia or a second Palom, if he prefers one of those, or possibly a Rosa. I don't think Rosa's really going to be what the runners want right now, because if you're talking about grinding up to end levels magic, Nuke is generally preferred over white. So black magic users are the ones that you really want multiples of for the final ones most of the time.
I tend to agree. Absolutely 100%. Black magic users also, as a general rule, require less equipment really to get geared up. A nuke is a nuke, and it will do quite a bit of damage. It doesn't matter if you have base equipment on it; it's still gonna hit like a truck. A white is always a white, though, and a Cure 4 absolutely isn't a Cure 4. Just ask Tella.
Unless you're single targeting it. Single target Gear 4 will always heal to the max, even from Tella.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's not really what you do after a big bang, is it?
not in particular, no. Meanwhile, Cyrek is doing. We completely forgot about this character check. And also checking out these shops that are down here, available for us in Cave Eblin.
And there are Ether 2s and Soma drops available for sale here in that Eblin item shop. So you don't need to take a trip to Kaipo now, because Zyrek has access to Ethers as well. And we're going to get that character check. Looks like Eisen is going to make the decision. Going to take that Rydia, it looks like, and there's Palom. So yeah, those two black mages join the party. Eisen's the first one to have the full team, and is probably, I imagine if you're picking up the characters, you're probably looking at a grind.
Absolutely. 100% at this point in time.
So it's interesting because early in the seed, it was Eisen who's a little bit more selective and apprehensive on taking the characters, and whereas now Zyrek is wanting to see some more options before committing. Finds Rosa in Eblin Cave as the character here. And we'll see if having that extra white mage for a little extra healing throughout the rest of the seed and a better HP growth than Porum just makes a little bit of a safer seed, but not as much firepower as the double black magic.
All right, so EizanTayama is now doing it. He is now setting up the D Machine grind. Just to explain this for anyone in chat who has not seen this before, first of all, welcome to the community, because we've talked about this just about every single race. However, to set up the D Machine grind, it's not necessarily RNG manipulation what we're doing here. What we're doing is effectively determining and discovering which random encounter table we load up. That loads up like on different pixels when you start the game. What we end up doing effectively is counting the steps outside an easy place to defeat enemies. Outside Baron is usually the easiest. And we go ahead and count the steps till our first encounter. Two members of our community, Simbu and Twisted Flax, put together a wonderful little handy-dandy chart that says, hey, count the steps, and if your encounter happens on this particular step, you need a certain number of encounters. Other than that, you're good to go. Turn off random encounters, and then your next random encounter will be the proper D Machine setup in the Giant Babel if you do everything properly.
Right. So yeah, if Eisen did all the calculations properly, and I imagine all these runners in the top 16 will do things properly, the only encounter that Eisen should see in the Giant should be a Searcher and two Beamers. And then once the Beamers are taken care of, the Searcher can then summon those special D machines.
The D Machine fight in particular is very important, in part because the Searchers, don't attack you. They only necessarily respond by summoning the D Machine itself. The Beamers will do a percentage-based attack with their beam. The D Machines, as long as you don't physically fight them, will only cast fire, which is again a percentage-based HP attack. So you can take a level 1 Rydia in this case, or level 4, and she gained a couple levels. You can take her into this fight, and she will live, presuming that you do everything properly.
Yeah, you better do it right though, because the battle could get out of hand quite quickly if you do make a mistake. Like if you get to Tella's turn and he doesn't have the magic to do the MP in order to do weak, then you're going to be seeing quite a number of fires from that D machine. So be careful is basically my rule on that. Make sure you know Tella's MP and you've got people other than Tella throwing ethers on him to keep him up.
True, and that's why you always want to put Tella, and I made this mistake in this tournament as well. Man, did I pay for it. You always want to make sure Tella is in that center slot. You get extra accuracy when you're in the center slot in this game. It's something that a lot of the runners know, but I don't know if every casual observer of the game, even myself when I was a kid, didn't necessarily know. But if you're in the center slot, doesn't magic accuracy, physical accuracy, does not matter. It absolutely helps to have Tella in the center slot so he doesn't whiff on a weak, because that spells disaster.
Yeah, when I was playing casually, it was always Cecil in the middle. That was all I did. At any rate, it looks like Zyrak has also picked up that Rydia. So very similar teams for the two right now, but is also setting up that. We saw Zyrak pause for a minute when he saw Rosa there, like, is this the character I want? Was really pondering that decision, but ended up going with the Summoner instead, and is now setting up his manipulation to get that same grind fight that we're seeing Eisen in right now. And so now we're going to be seeing our runners doing a grind. This is going to be here for a few minutes, so just want to give a shout out to our Restream team today, because we do have a wonderful Restream team. We have Brownfire doing the restreaming themselves, and Chazman doing the tracking. And so big shout outs to both of them, because if we don't have them doing their work, we don't have a show. So big thank you to both of them. Also want to shout out to everybody over at the Random Media Network. We've had so many races shown on stream this event, and without the great people over at Random Mania, our wonderful partners, like half of them wouldn't have been able to be shown. So big thanks to everybody at Random Mania from the bottom of my heart.
In the meantime, we finally have the Dragon Machine proper coming out to play. So we have Tella setting up with his weak. We'll see, typically how this grind sets up. You cast weak, you fight it to do some damage, and then while that attack is queued up in some capacity, you try to get at least one life potion or life spell to target the D Machine before it dies intentionally. Of course, with this particular game, we have the life potion glitch. When an enemy dies, if you cast a life potion on it, effectively they die twice. Normally, the life potion is supposed to bring it back to life with HP based on its vitality. If its vitality stat is 0, like all enemies are, it comes back to life, immediately dies, giving you extra XP.
Yeah, this is the same grind that's used in the vanilla speed run for Final Fantasy IV. And so we're kind of very similar strats that we see here that you'd see in that game. So a lot of carryover knowledge for people who have experience with the original game as well. At least speed running it. Casually, I would have never thought of doing anything like this. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely not. I didn't know the life potion glitch was a thing, let alone when we played this, as wee children.
Now, one thing that you're seeing over on Zyrak's side is he's queuing up an Ice 2 as the method of killing the weakened D machine. It's going to do plenty more than the 9 or less HP that the monster will have, but because of the timing of the magic cast, you've got a little bit more space in which that you can throw that life potion, and you might be able to get multiples out. It looks like the timing was a little off on this one, but it looks like that's what Zyrak's trying to do here.
Yeah, it looks like he meant to life potion with Forum instead of attacking, which really kind of threw off his rhythm at that point in time. So he's going to have to spend some time recovering at this point in time.
And you see, this is also, if you do it a little bit early, that timing on that Ice 2 can make it so you might throw those life potions early too. So getting that timing right is a big part of the dance in this particular grind.
Yeah, once you get into it and once you're kind of consistently rolling, you get into almost a rhythm. It's, a boxer will talk about getting into a dance, getting into a rhythm, and being able to set yourself up properly. It's very similar in this sort of fight. You get into a rhythm, you know which character you have to do, who does what. Tella makes it a little bit difficult because he's slower and sometimes throws off everyone's rhythm because he's an old man who has 2 left feet. But you still get into enough of a rhythm that you can kind of just go and let everything happen.
Yeah, because of that some people have started using like a Hermes sandal on Tella for the haste effect to kind of counteract the fact that he's so slow. And so it's really interesting to see just a little bit of optimizations that you're seeing within this particular grind itself.
While this is going on, I do want to give kind of a program reminder. We have lots of other matches that are going on. We want you to stick around here, of course, tonight. But there is 3 simultaneous matches. This is a triple header all going on at the same time. Over on Free Enterprise, you have Baka Shinobi versus Penguinator. And then on RPG Limit Break, it's a Stone Dingley versus Zilch. If you guys hang around, Slippery versus Pankraz is going to happen at 9 o'clock tonight on Randomania 2. And that looks like that's about to get started right now as well. So lots of Free Enterprise going on tonight. Do whatever Cagdar multi-twitch that you have to do. Just listen to us because we're clearly the superior commentators.
You got that right, Vitasia. Always a pleasure working with you.
You as well, man.
But make sure you check the VODs of all those other races too, because this top 16 is definitely hype.
There's not a bad match, and you can learn something from everyone. Everyone has a little bit different technique, but yeah, everyone's fantastic in this top 16. If you got this far, you earned it.
That's one of those things that's really interesting about a race like this one that we're watching right now, where you get that early Darkness Crystal, you got those 2 objectives that are really easy to do right away. So the question is, where are the little differences between these 2? And we saw that the difference between the Sid and the Yang is part of it, but also Zyrak had some extra levels on that Hallam coming into this fight that Eizan didn't have as well. So he's got access to that Ice 2 strategy that he's using, and we're not seeing that over on Eizan's side. So it's just these little bits of differences that make it up. Once this is done, Eizan's team with that Yang is probably going to be a little bit more potent than Zyrak's as well. Again, it's these little differences between these 2 runners that might, that are definitely going to be a big factor in this, because we only have that one thing that we need to find, and that's the Earth Crystal. I mean, we could also find Legend Sword and Adamant. Depends on where things are hidden, but we're really close to go mode right now.
So here's the question for you, Rex, and it is a completely subjective question. There's no wrong answer, but I would love to get your perspective on this.
Okay.
As a runner, which would you prefer to see? The Earth Crystal or one of the two, Legend and Adamant, before you did the hook?
Personally, like I at this point, probably the Earth Crystal just to get it over with. These really fast seeds that we see here are the ones that are the scariest for me, and I'd rather not deal with them. Give me a long seed where it's really hard to get everything. That's what I like. This one, it's like, oh my goodness, we're already there. Yeah, just get me out of it. Give me the Earth Crystal, and I'm done.
I mean, that's respectable. I completely understand. I know, there's some people who don't like these super jetty seeds where everything's laid out in front of you and you're just told go. Other people like a little bit of decision making that you have to go into, because the more decisions you have to make mid-race, the more likely that your opponent will make a mistake, and you can bank on that. There's just so many different variables that you take into account. Different runners have different styles. I know, for those of us who were in the hook route, in the play-in races from the hook route, I think that second play-in was, everyone was in go mode at like 20 minutes or something like that, and it was very similar to this. We all hated it. Every single one of us hated it.
And this is just one of these things where, getting the experience of playing these games gives you a little bit of insight. We're talking about this grind here, and we see some little things like the timing on Zyrax, life potions be off a little bit, and these are runners who have practiced this quite a bit, and so this is not like, it's not, we talk about why you're able to do it at a low level of percentage-based attacks and everything, but that doesn't mean that it's easy.
No, absolutely. And the worst part is, especially the further you get into it, we're about 10 minutes into this grind right now. Messing up now would be devastating for either one of these runners. So you get more nervous the deeper in you go.
Yeah, if you're counting how many D machines you need to do, like the next level advanced strat is making sure you know how much experience each D machine gives you, and for each life potion that counts as 2 D machines. So you're counting that of the way, and as you're getting close to the end of that count, as you say, it's the nerves keep going up. It looks like Zyrax done with his grind. We're looking for Nuke on the Black Magic and White on Porum. Looks like we're short of Nuke on Palom.
Short of Nuke on Palom. That's going to be difficult. We did get Cure 4 on Porum, but no White either.
Yeah, so either he miscounted or he is hoping to gain those last couple levels through some boss fights. Maybe he might be thinking about doing moon grinds or moon bosses rather than going to the underground to ensure that he gets those last couple of spells.
Now, it's worth noting that Rydia, Zyrax Rydia was Slingshot, because started at level 1, so she got some extra levels and she got Nuke. So we have at least one nuker to get through some enemies at this point in time. Plus, Quake Kid is going to do Quake Kid sort of things, and then you can just heal up. So it's not all doom and gloom. He just cut it off maybe a little bit short, hoping to get the rest of the levels on the way. EizanTayama is going to slingshot both his Black Mages, so they're both going to be considerably higher level than the rest of his party once he's done. I don't know if it was a miscount by Zyrax. I want to say that he's intentionally cut it short to be able to do what he wants to do, and he's on his way to the moon.
Yeah, I don't think that this was a mistake by Zyrax. I think he was counting up enough to get the nuke on Rydia, and he gained really close on Palom. He's up to the Meteor level, so nuke's the only spell that he has to learn after this. And as you mentioned, we've got nuke on Rydia, so feeding bosses right now is, in most cases, not going to be that difficult.
Meanwhile, on Eizen's side, it does look like his Rydia did learn white. If I counted Rydia, she gained 54 levels at level 4, so she'll be at 58, even one level higher than Zyrak's Slingshot. Will also have nuke. I got to imagine if Rydia gets it, his Palom is also going to be Slingshot. Yeah, 52, so that Palom's at level 62.
That's pretty nice. But one thing where that Zyrak did that Eizan didn't do is Zyrak knocked out Tella before finishing the fight to leave him at the lower level. Tella gained a lot of levels. He's at level 48 now on Eizan's team. So one thing that has been something to think about throughout this entire event has been managing your agility, and now we've got a pretty high level Tella, so agility situation is a little bit shakier on Eizen's time screen right now.
One thing that I don't think will make a difference, but might, was just the weird rolls that ended up happening for the drop. Zyrak got 1 hourglass. EizanTayama got like 4 hourglasses out of that.
Looks like this first stop in the moon is going to be the Value Cave itself, Cave Bahamut. We see the Magus Sisters here. This is, we'll see how much this Delta attack does. Not too much. The magic's not scary. The scariest thing is going to be the physical attacks from Cindy in the middle. But Quake is going to be a good way to deal with it. The other thing is you can't nuke Cindy in the middle because of the wall that Sandy places on her. So Quake is going to be the most effective way to deal with these characters here. Looks like Eizen's going the other route, is going to take the hook route into the underworld. So we've got some serious divergence here. This could be the difference between who wins and who loses this race.
And just for comedy's sake, Zyrak tried to kill off his Tella by having Tella cast Virus on himself. The reflected wall hit Tella.
Yeah, well.
La, 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 la.
Luckily, he does have a Kamikaze in his inventory, so that's going to be the way to take care of Tella now.
Absolutely. In the meantime, we have... Oh, well, or he can just get the face.
Yes, Cindy will do the work.
But yeah, this divergence is really, I think, going to make the difference. Everything else has been, marginal differences at this point in time. They were effectively within a minute or two of each other. This will make the difference. It's dramatic.
Yeah, I talked about the little differences during the grind, but now we're talking about big, huge differences. This is like big honking differences that we're talking about right now.
Just a Dragoon Lance there in Cave Bahamut. So nothing in Cave Bahamut. Keep in mind, we still have 2 checks at the ribbon spot. We have the White Lance spot, both the Masamune and Murasame, and then the Crystal Sword altar. So we have 5 additional checks to make here on the moon.
Now, it's interesting as we're seeing Isaac going through the hook route, where we saw Zyrak ponder over that Rosa. We see that the boss in the Rubicante spot is a Lunar Sparkle, and I wonder if the knowledge that it's an unknown boss, it could be one of any of those lunar bosses, being in that spot might be the reason where Zyrak's like, I think I'd rather go to the moon and deal with these bosses rather than dealing with a moon boss at that place. Well, that might be something we want to ask him if he decides to interview us afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing that you can at least bank on is that that your access to underground, that, if this is our logical access to get to the underground, that Lunar Sparkle cannot be the Wyvern, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it is the Wyvern, we'll know that there's a D-Mist somewhere that we're going to have to go hunting for. But there's at least some logical deduction that at this point, we can reasonably assume that this is not going to be the Wyvern, which is the most dangerous thing that we could possibly run into at this point in time. So I don't. It feels like a safe play for EizanTayama, and it feels like there's more that he can do on the Earth as opposed to what Zyrek is doing. But what Zyrek is doing is much more straightforward. Get to the place, kill the boss, get the thing.
And we see the King Queen Evelyn boss check over on EizanTayama is the Leviathan. And looks like Eizen's going to need to heal up a little bit before doing that fight. Luckily, there's a save point right before, got to reset cabin up, and then we'll be ready to take on the Leviathan.
Yeah, the reset was because he was still pretty, he had some lower HP based on some other things that he had done. And Leviathan hits immediately with, a good chunk of your HP. I think it's a 25% big wave at that point. So he knew that he was going to lose some characters, so might as well reset, make sure you're set up proper to do this. This is one of those annoying fights, both Leviathan and, for example, Ogopogo, which would take half of your life right off the bat. Even if you're at high levels, even if it's an otherwise easy fight, they're going to take a chunk of your HP right out of the gate.
And Zyrek now in the ribbon room finds Mylon and friends. This is another one where we might see some quakes being spammed to get rid of those gas, but then it's going to be a lot of nukes, maybe whites. We see Palom learned nuke from that fight over in Cave Bahamut, the Magus Sisters, and so has nuke available now, and still no white on Forum, but got to be pretty close at this point.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, EizanTayama finds Plague available, and there's some countdowns going on. Just to be safe, looks like he's going to kamikaze his Rydia, but at the same time, I honestly think he would probably be safe just chain casting nukes and whites at this point.
Yeah, but better safe than sorry. The tried and true method of kamikazing a character and then reviving them so that Plague re-ups that count. Nothing wrong with that. The scariest thing on this Mylon fight, especially once the gas are all taken out, is the physical attacks from Mylon, because this Lit 1 is pretty much nothing at this point. The gas are not scary at this point, but this spot has a pretty decent physical attack, and so if Mylon gets that, once the gas are down, the Mylon script has a little bit more physical punches in there every now and then. So you kind of want to avoid as many of those as possible, and that might be why we're not seeing those quakes being used, and instead taking them out one by one. The other thing is you want to make sure you can take care of those gas, as you do with Sid right there, because once Mylon is down, those gas are a lot more dangerous too. And we see a couple bosses go down, and I saw Forum just learned white.
And hey, his Sid finds a Runex. Great.
Yeah, I think he still had the wooden hammer, so I think that's an upgrade.
I mean, I'll take it. Eizan does get through his plague, though, in the meantime.
So Eizen's going to be the first runner underground. Ooh, and we see Evil Wall right next door in the Vanilla Plague spot.
Yeah, this is a punch hard kind of spot. This one might be a little bit difficult to get through. We have his Tela is staying down, so he can't cast Blink. So he can't double up with Forum and Tela to blink his way through. Regardless of that, Forum took 2 punches to the face and was out.
Yeah, luckily the HP in this spot is a lot lower than most of the lunar bosses, so the nukes should be enough to take take them out. Take out the evil wall here. Eisen now heading straight to Dwarf Castle. Probably gonna. We'll see if he decides to do any shopping or if he goes straight to the boss check. Looks like he wants to check some equipment. Now that we're underground, we've got access to some more, little bit more upgraded shops here, and we see bandanas for sale. And so the ability to get some slightly better equipment is definitely a very tempting one.
There's something amazing was there. I think it'd be good. Zyrak, unfortunately, only finding weapons in all the weapon locations on the moon. Imagine that.
Yeah, so far this has not been a very lucky checks for Zyrak. Not only are we not finding the golden ticket, which would be that Earth crystal, but haven't found even half of that forge yet. So still digging deep though. It has a few checks left. We got the vanilla Ogopogo spot, the vanilla Wyvern spot, and the vanilla Pale Dim spot still available. So Zyrak could still get lucky and find that golden ticket of the Earth crystal here.
What makes the moon check so far even worse is that we don't even have any rabbit holes we can dive down. Like, say we pick up the pan or the Baron key, we can check those locations to at least try to make our effort up on the moon worthwhile. But we've not even seen anything like that can point us into a direction at this point.
And we see the guards here down at the vanilla Ogopogo spot, and Zyrak deciding, yeah, I think I'm going to use my Hourglass 3 in here. We don't have a whole lot of fights left where that can be used, and this is probably the scariest place that you can find a boss that is susceptible to the Hourglass 3. So I think, thinking about all the different options, it kind of makes sense that Zyrak decided to burn that here.
Interesting that he's casting. Yeah, it looks like he's trying to get some life glitches off on these guys, which is something you can do on this guys, instead of just like casting stone and calling it good.
I think part of that is wants to get a little bit more insurance levels on Forum so that she can survive the full damage Big Bangs if necessary in the Threemus fight. So I think this is thinking ahead a lot, because if this ends up being the Earth Crystal, Zyrak doesn't want to grind anymore, but still wants Forum to be good. Just a coffin. Yeah, this has been not a very good moon so far for Zyrak.
Meanwhile,
EizanTayama!
That's big, because Dwarf Castle is one of those checks that, especially in the table flags, people have been fading quite a bit, actually.
We didn't see he didn't go down to do the free checks in the Fey March. We didn't see him go do the vanilla pan route or anything like that. Just gonna do a little bit more shopping here in the underground, then be ready for Threemus. I think with the levels that he gained on Tella, he's probably looking for a curse ring, is my guess. But so far, no luck here in the underground.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, plenty of luck with that Earth Crystal, just to be clear.
Yeah, it really feels like he went into that Dwarf Castle because that is kind of a low percent check. He didn't check his freebies. He didn't even do tower that he could have double dipped because he had the tower key as well. Yeah. That felt like a play that you make when you feel like you're behind and you have to make a low percent check, and it paid off for Eisen. I don't think he was entirely comfortable with where he was at, but now he's in go mode, so he's going to go up here, do the waterfall real quick, and then he's going back to the moon. He's ready to roll. Well, he's got a treasury, yeah.
We'll see. He might actually go through the treasury, hoping to find a curse ring in there. We'll see. Because I could imagine, like, in Zyrak's position, if he had found the Earth Crystal, he might just open it, not care what's in there, and head right back up. But that curse ring might be important enough for Eisen that he might say, I hope that there's one in there.
I tend to agree. I think Eisen's going to be doing that.
Meanwhile, this is the CPU at the Vanilla Wyvern spot. Now we know that he can't find that golden ticket of the Earth Crystal up there. He could find both halves of the forge. He could find the magma key to get him to the underground faster, but this is looking really rough for Zyrak. Another piece of gear.
Meanwhile, we have our favorite new game in Rate That Treasury. And yes, EizanTayama is going into the treasury. What's he going to find? Cat Claw.
Oof, that is a rough treasury.
I mean, Cat Claw, Gaia hat. And he's going to put the Gaia hat on his Porum instead of Palom. That's his best in slot, you know.
Well, and the Cat Claw is not really important because I don't think Yang's going to punch at all during the Threemus fight.
No, it's for this particular party setup. This was a meh out of 10 faux show.
Zyrak's got one more key item check here on the moon. If he was going to make it interesting, this has to be the magma key. Oh well, it's demissed. Maybe it could be both halves of the forge as well, but you'd still have to go through the hook route.
Yeah, there's no good way to go about it. Zyrak, unfortunately, just chose wrong at this point.
Yeah, this is nothing about saying that Zyrak's inferior. This is just randomizers, the nature of them. You had two choices, really, once you completed your grind. You could go through the hook route and head underground, or you could go and clear spots on the moon. Each of our runners chose a different method. One of them was rewarded, one of them wasn't. And that's the game we play.
It's one of the beautiful things about randomizers, and I think one of the reasons that all of us love this particular game. At the same time, it's one of the downsides. You know, sometimes and I'm not necessarily saying that either of these runners is a superior technician over the other, but sometimes, you have people who can be upset just because of randomization at this point in time.
I like to think that's how I've gotten all of the wins that I've ever had.
Same.
All right, and we see Eizan is up on the moon. Going to do a check here in the shop. I don't think we saw any of that by Zyrak. Might be looking for Cure 3s. I think that's about the only item at this point. Or maybe Silk Webs. I don't know if we found any of those. Those are a couple items that would be nice for the Threemus fight. They're not strictly required, of course, but they could be just real nice items to have if you need them.
Yeah, I am worried. Level 48 Tella, I need some help from anyone in chat or anyone else on the team. Level 48 Tella has got to have not fantastic agility. I'm just hoping he doesn't hit like a really bad agility spot at this point in time, which is why he's hunting around. But again, I don't have all the agility tables quite memorized right now.
And so now Eizan is taking the long walk down the lunar subterrane and will be in the Threemus fight pretty shortly here. Meanwhile, Zyrak gonna check that rat tail that he got for defeating that demist at the Vanilla Pale Dim spot. We'll probably check Mist Village too to see what's there. Of course, Zyrak does not know that Eizan has found that Earth Crystal right now. So he's still hoping that the Earth Crystal is going to be there. We know that's not going to be, and we see the Sand Ruby, and not going to be something that Zyrak's happy to see right now. Although it is a key item. We've got the Rat Tail and the Sand Ruby, so he wasn't completely 0-4 on key items on the moon. And yeah, flying over to Mist Village right now, we're going to see what Rydia's mom has. And the reward for that ends up being just a Bahamut summon. So yeah, that was, when we talk about moons haunted having nothing useful in there, this is one of the most haunted moons I've ever seen.
And that's the worst part. You want to make a 50-50 decision. Zyrak knows at this point in time he's probably, if not lost this race, really behind, unless EizanTayama made a similar play. So you can't give up.
Exactly. Right now, Zyrak is hoping that Eizan made the same play that he did, so is going to be racing down there. But meanwhile, Eizan is now in the lunar core, going to just a few short levels down and to get to the Threemus fight, and we're going to see the final fight very shortly.
And of course, we're starting to see a couple flags pop up in chat. We at the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise community, of course, love our randomizers. We love to randomize everything. I randomized my breakfast this morning. But one of the things that we had trouble randomizing initially was Threemus, because you can't put the final boss in the game anywhere else in the game. That just seems silly. So what was the solution? Well, he has this wonderful script where he reveals his true colors once we use the crystal. So we decided to randomize what his true colors are. There are more than 450 different sprites curated by Scala Kitty and the rest of our wonderful free enterprise community. And what is Threemus' final form? Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
Absolutely. It is now butt time as EizanTayama has entered the fight. And we're going to see if this agility situation works out. The other saving grace that Zyrak has, if he decides to go to Dwarf Castle immediately after completing this, which you mentioned that was kind of a gamble that Eizan made as well. But if he decides to go there, he could have a chance if Eizan struggles in this fight. We'll see what happens. Threemus is no joke.
So we're getting everything set up right now. We're seeing some shakes, trying to get everything set proper. Tella's going to cast the crystal and cast a Star Veil on Yang to be able to receive and reflect those magic spells.
Right. So what we're going to see from Eizan is what we like to call a reflect strat. So basically, we grinded up the Palom form and Rydia to their ultimate... there we go. To the levels where they have nuke and white, so that we can reflect them off of, in this case, Yang, to Threemus here, and do the damage that way. If you do a direct cast onto Threemus with those nukes, they get he's going to counter with nuke and do extra damage to you. The extra damage isn't all that big deal. The big deal is we get to avoid an HP refill halfway through the fight by doing this reflect strategy. That's the long and short of it.
It is amusing that, of course, EizanTayama is fighting Eizenmus.
Yes. It did cause me a little bit of a chuckle while I was explaining that.
Mike Crookcork's in chat saying, watching thumbnails on mobile looks like Elvis. You're not wrong.
Yeah, definitely has an Elvis vibe. Although I don't think Elvis's pants were that big.
Zyrak downs Plague, and Eizan is just really pumping out the damage right now. He's just going to town.
Yeah, we mentioned that his Palom got to a really high level, like in the 60s, right? So we see, even without any sort of special equipment on him, doing almost 7,000 damage with those nukes. Or over 7,000 damage with those nukes is pretty impressive. And one of the reasons that we prefer Nuke over White is the casting time. Nuke is almost instantaneous when you cast it, whereas you have to wait a little while for the White to come out. So that's why having 2 black mages versus 2 white mages is usually going to be the preferred for dealing damage. Having the Rosa would have been a little bit more hit points that your team has, but hopefully will do enough damage quick enough for Eizen's sake that that the hit point count won't even be a factor. There's a quad 9 for the nukes. That's nice.
Oh, and here comes a big bang. It looks like he's prepping to have to revive his Porum. Yeah, so kind of a high roll there. Oof.
Oh, but both Rydia and Hallam survived that, so that's pretty huge. The black hole comes out. That gives a little bit of recovery time. We just need to set up a wall somewhere, and then we should be good to go. There's a Tier 4 for the recovery. And there's a Star Veil being queued up, and then we should be good from there.
Yeah, we'll be solid from this point in time. Zyrak, meanwhile, looks like picked up the Sand Ruby from the free chest in the Feymarch. Again, first time in the Feymarch.
No, the Sand Ruby was given from the Rat Tail.
Oh, okay. All right. I missed that entirely. So I did not see what was in that free chest there.
Ooh, here comes a big bang. Ooh, that was a pretty nasty one. Just dang left. And there's the virus gets him, and so that I think he was really close there, but I think Threemus might have been a little bit too fast in getting that out, and that might be some of that agility issues that we were talking about.
He turned his battle speed. He was at 2, so he turned it down to 3. So he has a little bit more time in between everything to get everything set up properly. Just diving forward again. It's one of those things, and this is where, as a racer, you start to worry yourself a little bit, because it's real easy in this situation to get yourself tilted, or you're making poor decisions and making mistakes, honestly, in races where you can't afford to make mistakes. Now, I don't think EizanTayama is so tilted right now that he's going to be making a ton of mistakes, but it's a concern right now. You have to be able to clear your mind, kind of have short-term memory loss, for lack of a better term, and just, after a quarterback throws an interception, you have to get it out of your head so you can go back out and play the game. That's exactly what's going through EizanTayama's mind right now. He's got to forget that, move on, and try to get this Threemus down.
And for the record, that was the Adamant in the free chest in the Feymarch, and now Zyrak has found the alt gauntlet down at the bottom of the Feymarch and is going through with it, because at this point, Zyrak still doesn't know where that Earth Crystal is, so is going to be checking as many key item spots as he can to try to clear them out, hoping to find that Earth Crystal, but will settle for the Excalibur and the Adamant as well, and is now halfway there. So if either the Excalibur or the Earth Crystal, of course he doesn't know that the Earth Crystals and Dwarf are down here, he'll be in go mode as well. Now take 2 for EizanTayama here in the final fight.
Oh, a clapper. We could have done a clapper grind this entire time instead of a D-machine grind.
Yeah, it is another grind that is possible. I will give it that.
It is another grind that is a thing that we don't ever want to see.
You can see even at these high levels, this is a pretty tough spot to hit that alt gauntlet in. These bosses, or these clappers in particular, have pretty high hit points, and their blitz attack can do quite a bit of damage too, so not a safe fight at all, but looks like he got through it. And what is he rewarded with? Just the spoon.
The most deadly piece of cutlery in the entire FF4 universe.
Yeah, but not with this team. This team can't do anything with the spoon. And we see D Lunars as the second fight in the Fey March. This one's in the Vanilla Leviathan location. Kind of a scary fight here.
Very fast fight. One shot is Porum. That was rough. And Talon's already down due to fires. Yeah, that's a very fast spot.
And we see the reflected nukes coming out again over on Eizan's side. And we're in our second Threemus fight proper right now. Looks like Zyrek had to take a reset, and it looks like he's going to give it another try. I was kind of hoping that that reset would point him towards the Dwarf Castle, but unfortunately not. Now, these reflected spells still still the strategy that EizanTayama is using in this fight. We'll see if there's going to be any more like defensive strategies, like if we're going to be seeing Cure Force come out a little bit more proactive than we did the last time, so that what happened in the last fight doesn't happen again, or if he just goes with the same strategy and tries to get more of those higher rolls like that quad 9 we just saw.
His Yang is kind of reserved to toss Cure 2s. Maybe what he was looking for at some point were Cure 3s, just so he could be a little bit better of an alchemist right now. But yeah, here comes that big bang. Oof.
I think Eizan would have felt a lot better if Cure 3s were available in that moonshot. That was a nasty one. He does have a little bit of time to recover with the, I believe the black hole is coming up next, but with how, but that's the flash, he did it!
Clutch final nuke.
Wow. Big GG's for EizanTayama to win this first game. That was amazing. It looks like the official race spot time is 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds. Big GG's to EizanTayama.
If we can get Eizan in here for a quick interview. Meanwhile, Zyrek does finally get through that. Finds the Twin Harp. Could he be following that? Following those gambles? Might we get music?
We'll see about that, but in the meantime, I believe we are now joined by EizanTayama. Eizan, GG's. Congratulations on your win, going to 1-0 in this best of 3.
Thank you.
So, the first thing I've got to ask is, how clutch was that final nuke? Yeah, it took 2 tries. That first one, things seemed to go a little rocky right at the end, but was it just like, you think the damage rolls were low, or what do you, what are your thoughts about the Threemus fight in general?
First time that big bang hit all the kids for 2K plus, and then the virus hit all the kids. And Porum is just terrible with HP.
That is her biggest weakness as a mage in this party, is her HP growth for sure. And you were forced to keep her as the first character. What were you thinking at the beginning of the seed when you saw Porum as the character that you were going to be forced to carry throughout the run?
Kind of worried. I kind of cried when I saw Rose. Porum always makes things worse.
Well, I mean, today it still ended up being a win. That's got to be something, right?
Yeah.
Eisen, GG's one more time. I do want to ask you about your decision as soon as you finished up your grind and you went back down. You did the hook route to go into the underground, but your first check once you got there was Dwarf Castle, which is usually something that most people fade and go out of the way. Was that a decision that you wanted to do early on in the race, or did you think that you were behind and so you were doing a low percent gamble?
I wasn't sure, but I had an idea what I wanted to do. I figured if Cyrat got underground first, he would do Tower and Feymarch. So I was like, well, I'll counter that. I'll start at Jorth and make my way the other way. Go on the Feymarch and Tower last.
That certainly paid off for you by finding the golden ticket and the Earth Crystal. When you first opened up this seed and saw that basically 2 of the objectives were available right at the start in the overworld, were you thinking like a gamble like that is going to be something that's going to be what you need in order to win a race like this? Or like if the other objectives were like maybe one on the moon, like maybe the Twin Harp, or like just like kind of regular non-free objectives, would you make that same decision in the Dwarf Castle?
This time kind of worked out because I had a plan in mind how I was going to do it. If I didn't have the tower key, I might have done something differently, because I was trying to think what would he be doing in this situation, because I know the further I get in this, I'm going to be out executed easily. So gambles is going to be one of my biggest things to do.
Well, having a plan definitely worked out for you tonight. So this is your first in this series against Zyrek. You got to feel a little bit comfortable going up 1-0. Do you have any other thoughts about like what you need to do in order to finish out this now?
Just hopefully make no mistakes, and hopefully don't have any more quarrels. You made that demon shit terrible too.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say about this particular race?
No. Only thing I think I kind of regret taking Yang. I got that power shirt and poison claw, and I was like, oh, I'll just take him. I was like, yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea. But then again, I didn't find anything for Sid or King. So.
I mean, there was stuff available elsewhere that you didn't know. So, probably all told better.
Yeah, I think this worked out fine. But once again, GG's, thanks for joining us, and thanks for letting us watch your race tonight. And good luck in the rest of your races in this event.
Thank you.
All right, that's EizanTayama, our winner tonight. And the first person to get a win in this spoon bracket against Zyrek here. And so set up pretty good here. Zyrek's going to have to win 2 in a row in order to advance at this point. Eizan only needs to win 1 out of 2 now to make it to the next fight, which is going to be against the winner of the Invenerable Dusty Griff match.
Well, Zyrek does look like he ended up finding the Legend Sword at the top of the tower. So he will have objective 1 to complete immediately. Does have to go through this cutscene, unfortunately, to get another key item. But then he'll be able to turn in for an Excalibur that will do nothing but sit in his inventory. And how about a bonus Excalibur, just because?
Yeah, well, we've got a bunch of Excaliburs now, and nothing to do with them, unless we have anything that we want to buy in this shop here, because when you complete the forge, there is also a shop that opens up in Kokel's workshop, and so that's just another bonus that you get when you complete the objective number 1.
It's the only shop in the game that can have some of the really top tier items and weapons that are available out there, and says, "No, I'm good. I don't need it."
What's really interesting to me, especially after that interview with Eizan, is that what he said was, I think that if Zyrek goes underground as well, that he's going to go to the Feymarch and the Tower and complete those, right away. So I'm going to counter that by going to the dwarf castle. And wouldn't you know it, the top of the tower was the legend sword, and the Fame Arch was the adamant. So if Zyrek had gone there and did what Eisen kind of thought he might do, this could have been a super close race.
It would have been very, very close. I still think, all told, Eisen would have a little bit of an edge.
Probably.
But again, it was so close at that point in time. We're talking just a single decision difference between. Oh, that's an unfortunate airship land.
Yeah, I've done that one many times. But if you imagine if the things went out the way Eisen predicted, and Zyrek did those 2 checks, even with the extra time and the save there, that wipe that Eisen made the first time doing the Threemus fight might have been enough for Zyrek to win. Like, I'm just saying that this was the times might be quite a bit off here. It might not look like a close race because of that decision, but if things had fallen just slightly different, this would have been a really close race, and I think Zyrek had a chance to win this.
If we think about it, right now, Zyrek is, 8 minutes and counting behind EizanTayama. We don't know when he's going to finish, but
right.
So if we make a best guess, 2 minutes to dive and 4 minutes to beat Threemus. So another 6 minutes from now at 1:26. Do you really think that, that's a 12-minute difference? Do you really think that Zyrek spent 12 minutes on the moon only? No, I think he spent a lot more. So I think.
Well, yeah, Zyrek finished his grind first, and so he would have had a head start on Eisen, and so it's just that extra time. Now, if because of the level difference and he didn't have those final things, the fights in the Fame Arch and everything like that might have fallen a little bit differently. Like that 2D Lunars fight would have been a lot more difficult if he didn't have the nuke up both of his black magic. So, I mean, there still is a whole lot of other factors to consider too, rather than just straight time. But it's just really interesting that that's what Eisen said, and that happens to be exactly where the Forge things were. So I just think that that's really kind of interesting.
I mean, either way, I think we can agree. The time separating these two is going to be much larger than how close this game actually was.
Absolutely, yes, and it really came down obviously the biggest thing was Zyrek decided to go to the moon, whereas Eisen decided to go underground, and it could have been that the Legend Sword, the Adamant, and the Earth Crystal were all on the moon instead of all underground. And so that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
We have kind of it's a saying that sounds condescending, but it's not intended to be condescending. Rando's gonna rando. You make the statistically correct choice every single time, but you still won't win every single match because sometimes the statistically correct choice isn't the right one to beat the seed. And I think this seed was kind of a prime example for it. Dwarf Castle wasn't the statistically correct choice to do in that particular instance for EizanTayama, but he knew what he was doing. He was counterplaying, and he was making the gamble that he thought he needed to make, and it won him the race.
And that's the thing, like he said, he had a plan, and I think that's really important when it comes to these elite races here at the end, especially if you feel like you might be an underdog in a fight. Like I don't know, like you see right now, Eisen's ranked 13, Zyrek 15 as far as the seeding in this event goes right now, but that doesn't mean that Eisen didn't feel like he needed to counterplay Zyrek, because clearly he did. So he had a plan, like, I'm going to make this decision to try to counter anything, and if this ends up paying off, I'm going to be in great shape. And guess what? It did. So preparation there is really what helped Eisen into the winner's circle tonight.
And we see their spoonmate, Dusty Griff, He is sitting in chat. I mean, he's not here. I mean, yes, he's here because we all enjoy Final Fantasy Randomizer. I mean, come on, fantastic. But it's intel at this point in time. You know, it all comes down to any edge that you can have. That intel is just as valuable to help you move on to the next stages as anything else. Dusty and Invenerable will have their first race tomorrow evening. Well, you know, that schedule is still yet to come out, but you gotta think about the next match sometimes and do the intel checks on your possible next opponents as well.
And I wouldn't be surprised if either or both of EizanTayama and Zyrek were in the chat of that one, watching that one intently as well. On the other hand, they might be practicing as well, because any edge that you have, any I don't know if we're going to see any new strats, but just making sure you're up on your technical areas and everything like that. Make sure that you're feeling comfortable with everything that you're working out. That's something that's not worth understating as well. Does that make sense? I hope it did.
Absolutely, it makes sense.
Okay, good. And now Zyrek is in that final fight now, and so we're seeing again the lack of the Cure 3s, those Cure 2 potions being thrown out. Here's that first big bang. I think it's probably still going to take down Palom, although the black shirt will help. And it did, yeah. So Palom's still up. That Cure 2 plus the extra equipment that I don't know if it was a black shirt or a sorcerer robe. There were good stuff in that Koval shop, and so that little extra magic defense really helped. And now we can spam a bunch of attack magic and cure up with the Cure 2s from Sid to keep Palom alive and avoid the little slip damage from the Big Bang. You see, with that equipment boost, we're seeing a little bit higher damage rolls from Zyrek's mages than we saw in EizanTayama's. Other than the really super high leveled Palom on his team, of course, which was hitting for the quad 9s. But we're consistently seeing very high rolls, over 8,000 from these nukes from Rydia and Palom here on Zyrek's side.
Yeah, they're just going to town at this point in time. You know, Sid's doing his best chemist impression at this point in time, trying to get at least Rydia up. I think he's not quite written off his Palom, but maybe lower prioritized. But
there's the flash. Didn't even get to that second Big Bang, and I think if you've got the kind of the best situation of mage reflex strategy, that's what you want to see.
Absolutely. It does sound like we are joined now by Zyrek. GG's. And my apologies for apparently the most haunted moon ever on the face of the planet.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
So, when you decided to make that play to the moon, we noticed that your Palom and Forum were a little bit shy of their nuke and white levels, respectively. Was the plan to go to the moon to finish them off how early did you make that decision? I guess is my ultimate question.
During the grind, I missed one life glitch, I think, and I lost. I had the opportunity for a triple set up, and I lost it in my turn order at shortly into the fight. So I got what I knew I needed for Rydia, and I was like, if I wind up short on the other mages, then I can get it doing stuff on the moon. So that's why I cut the grind probably about 2 D machines short of where it theoretically would have needed to have been, maybe only 1, but yeah, that I wasn't particularly worried about it for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, especially once we saw you head up to the moon and then into Cape Bahama, we were certain that like it wasn't going to be an issue, and it really wasn't. The issue was the fact that the moon didn't have anything good at all.
No, no, it really didn't. And I almost did it top down, and if I had maybe the double checks in the pale dim spot would have gotten me to stay on Earth, and maybe this could have been interesting. But yeah, I eventually did decide to do it bottom up, and boy, there sure was not anything in the lower half of the moon, that's for sure.
Another thing that I thought was interesting and a difference between you and Eisen's run was you decided to take Sid as your character, whereas Eisen took Yang as the fourth or the fifth character. The rest of the party was the same for both of you. Do you kind of like taking like is Sid like someone that you're always looking for, or do you just like to make your decision of who to take in a little bit earlier as well?
No, I'm usually fine holding it off. Sid's just a decently strong. Sid's a very strong character in this flag set in general, to be honest. Because he gives you good anchor ability if like a Tela never shows up. He's got the HP pool similar to Yang, so he's basically along with Yang. He's the primary person you want at playing that chemist Starveil target sort of role. But unlike Yang, he's got, just because of his relatively high starting level, he's got some good power to get through the first 4 or 5 locations in the seed for you. So unless I've started a seed with, an edge at a Sand Ruby or a melee character and found a strong weapon for him already, it's hard to turn down a Sid when he shows up in your first 3 or 4 character checks.
Okay, and so unfortunately you lose your first round here, but you still have 2 more fights that you have potentially against EizanTayama here. Is there anything from this race that you're going to take into your next races?
It's kind of funny. I played this one differently than how I usually play it, and it wound up not being right. I'm usually the last guy to go and do the early grind. I'm usually the guy who's take what you have and take it into like as far as you can take it kind of thing. So I would usually be the guy who'd be taking the low level mages into the hook route in that spot. But this time I decided, there's no reason to do that. Just go up, just go do your grind. And that having all the levels pushed me to the moon because I knew I could just cut through it. And of course it wound up being the incorrect decision here because the Earth Crystal was just lying around relatively open in the underground. So, there was one big crisis point in this seed and I chose wrong. And congrats to Eisen. He both chose right and played well to finish the seed that quickly. I'm just gonna try and do more of the same in the next one and hopefully get a little luckier with what I choose to do.
Well, that's great. Vitasia, did you have any questions for Zyrak here?
No, I mean, just GG's. Everything, like I said, and we talked about it on the restream, this would have been a much closer race, obviously, if it weren't for that one decision. In fact, honestly, I think that's really the only defining factor. But good luck to you moving forward. I think the race was much closer than the final time, and I look forward to watching the rest of the matches.
Great, and at least I came away with something. Now I know that if you go through the door into the tower room, cannon room, you can't walk out. You're stuck.
Oh, that just even going in there was there you go.
Because literally Golbez was the only boss I didn't want in there, and I was thinking, if it's Golbez, I just won't do it, and then I couldn't go back out the door. So today,
locked on both sides. That door is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Zyrak, and good luck to you in the rest of your races. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks to both of you and to the Restream team and to Game Boy and everybody at Randomania. Cheers.
All right, that was our second place finisher, Zyrak. Make sure to give both EizanTayama and Zyrak a follow. They're both great racers and put on a great show tonight. Once again, as he mentioned, big shout outs to our Restream team. We've got Ground Flyer doing the restreaming itself. We've got Chazman the tracking. Also, big shout outs to the Randomania Network and my partner Vitasia tonight. Vitasia, this was a really fun race to watch.
Absolutely. And to you too as well, Rex Rule. You and I are kind of old hats at this across multiple communities. I love working with you every chance we get. Looking forward to seeing how far deep we can get into this tournament.
Without a doubt. And with that, we're going to send everybody over to Randomania 2, where currently we are seeing another match in the brackets. We've got Slippery 42 versus X Pancraz. And make sure you don't spoil anyone about this race, but I hope you enjoy it. We've got a lot more free enterprise coming. And thanks everybody for watching.